Over the past decade or decade plus, I would say that bone broth has really fallen into the realm of like kind of fad foods territory, when really a lot of the times what we understand to be bone broth is basically just stock. Just all the bones and the meat and the offal of whatever animal that we're trying to make, put into a pot, boiled or simmered for a really long time. Most restaurants use it. That's why their soups taste so good. They take the time to make that stuff. But different cultures have been making these broths like for who can even say how long? Hundreds of years, thousands of years maybe. Beef bone broth is essentially just sulongtong, which is a Korean bone broth. Tonkatsu stock is the same thing but using pork bones. And it all comes down to the bones, which leach out their collagen, their calcium, fat, and protein from whether it be the joints or the skin or the nails or the marrow. That all goes in and makes for a really nutritious base of which you can make soups or sauces or whatever you want. Or perhaps even just a simple sipping broth. I've been wanting to make my own sulongtong in this guy for a really long time, but for some reason I've had a really hard time finding beef bones. I did, however, find a good amount of pork leg bones and chicken feet. So we will be using the, excuse me. And together we'll use these two to make a very, very rich base on which to make a nice bone broth. When using the pressure cooker, I kind of like to do things in 2 steps. I think the pressure cooker does a really good job in getting everything I need out of like hard ingredients or like tough ingredients such as bones. But when you cook stuff like spices or aromatics in the pressure cooker, I feel like a lot of it gets a little bit lost in there. The high levels of heat kind of messes with the nuance. So if you were gonna make something a little bit more nuanced, like a sophisticated or delicate stock, I would do the bones first and then boil it or simmer it again with your aromatics, anything you want to flavor it with. Now, if you were just making like some kind of stew or something like that, you would just do this pressure on low heat and that'd be fine. But because I want to get everything I can out of this, like here, we got like a pork ball joint over here and that's tons of collagen. We've got the marrow that we've had in these. Like I want to get everything that I possibly can out of this. So we'll be pressuring this on high for probably 2 hours. We're gonna do it for 2 hours and we'll see what we get out of it. This is the base of something that I would normally just call white stock. And for that, instead of pork bones, I would actually use an entire pig's head because of all like the fat and skin of that in there. But I can't fit that in this. And the whole point of it is to make it easy. So if you wanted to make this the like old-fashioned way, what you would do is you would take a stock pot that is about like this big and like this high, put in the pig's head, fill it up with water, and just let that boil for 48 hours non-stop, waking up in the middle of the night to refill the water before it burns your house down. So I don't recommend that way, but I do have a video on that way if you want to see it. This way is much easier. We'll do it this way. Okay, step 1, put everything in. I love how this is so much easier. Knowing that I can do this and then leave my house or do something else or not watch it, like that's magical to me. I use way too much, but you could totally get away with 2 pounds of pork leg bones and 2 pounds of chicken feet. And we will just fill this up to what the thing says is the maximum, because whenever I don't listen to this, it tends to make a mess everywhere. Close that. There we go. All right. Totally optional is if you wanted to roast your bones beforehand, you absolutely could. It would have provided you with a different kind of flavor profile, something that a little bit more like caramelized and rich. But because I've never done this with a pressure cooker before, I wanted to see what it was like just doing things plain and pure and simple. In my experience, I have seen some browning happen just by using a pressure cooker on high for an extended period of time, so we'll see if that even happens on its own. But otherwise, yeah, we're all here to learn. It has been about 2 hours, and we're just gonna go ahead and vent this. Oh God. Okay. Okay, so we've vented. We vented and everything should be fine to open now. Yeah, lifting. There we go. It's still boiling and bubbling. So we've got a lot of fat on top, and we've got a lot of these cooked up proteins, which will strain right out. But let's take a look in there at the bottom. So I noticed immediately the difference is it's a lot more clear. It's every bit as thick as a regular bone broth, but it's not as white. And I suspect that's because over 48 hours, 24 hours, when you're doing emulsification through like constant boiling in a broth, all those bubbles and the actions from the bubbles actually like remove the calcium from the bones, which, you know, we did it faster in this, so it extracted a lot of the collagen and the fat and the protein, but probably not as much of the calcium as you would in a traditionally made bone broth. So it's going to be a little bit less milky, but it seems like the texture is not going to be affected at all. So I'm going to strain this out and we'll see what we get. That looks a lot more like regular broth when you take all the crud out. So there we go. These are like the caps from the joints. Like that is all like, you know, collagen and gelatin, and a lot of it has absorbed into the soup. But this is also the stuff that, you know, keeps your skin from becoming wrinkly over time, and it helps I think it also helps your skin heal when it's injured. So at this point, what are your options for this layer of fat? The easiest thing to be would be to just let it cool and chill in your fridge. And then you could just literally remove this cap of fat that forms off so that it's not so oily. The next round after this though, what would happen is then now that you have a base of the stock itself, you could chill this and leave this and have this on hand so that you can flavor it however it is you want later. Or you could start adding your aromatics now into the pot. I would do onions, I would do garlic, scallion tips, spices, all sorts of things that you can do to make this taste like a delicious broth. Unsalted. So it's very pure tasting. It's already got a lot of flavor of, you know, a little bit of porkiness, a little bit of chalkiness from like some of the calcium from the bones, but otherwise, yeah. Yoink. Okay, just some onions. Whole quarters. Don't make things complicated. Make them easy to take out. Bulb of garlic. Ginger. We can just go with this 5 allspice, bay leaf, jujubes, licorice, that'll flavor it nicely enough for a base that is tasty, but at the same time still very versatile and can take it any kind of way you want. After this point, you'd be like flavoring it into an actual soup as opposed to like a base stock. At this point, the aromatics have been simmering for about 45 minutes and things are turning out really nicely. And so we're pretty much ready to test out. And the way that I like to test any broth is simply to eat it with dumplings. And so that's what we're gonna do. A little couple of final touches, things that I would do if I had the option. Already based on like the porky profile of using just the pork leg and the chicken feet, I think this would be amazing if we had tomatoes and they were in season, but we don't. So I would have cooked this with a ton of tomatoes in with that stuff right now. Right now it's just onions and dates and spices and garlic, but tomatoes would have totally made this. I'm going to turn off the heat and give it a hit of a little bit of chicken bouillon powder just to give it a nice rounded flavor to go with the dumplings. But apart from that, yeah, it's ready. Since I didn't separate the fat from it yet, we're just going to pretend I did by using the soup poop. So if I was gonna be nitpicky about this, it would be 100% aesthetics because it tastes fine and the mouthfeel is great because it's nice and like thick with that collagen, but it's got this like not very exciting gray-brown color to it. If you were gonna do it the traditional way and boil it for 48 hours, this thing would be like as white as milk, which is very pretty and very unexpected for something that is like pork broth. But when you're just using the pressure cooker, you kind of have this like brownish color that's not quite caramel brown. So I guess that would be the appeal of roasting your bones beforehand, because if you roasted your bones beforehand, you would have achieved like a deeper brown that's probably a lot more appealing than this is. But taste-wise, it's great. It's light. It's lighter than you think, especially after removing all the fat from it. It's very clean feeling. There's not too much stickiness from it. It takes to the aromatics and it takes to the spices very, very well. I would say for as easy as it was, it's worth the trade-off. Because for me, all it really was like stick it in the pressure cooker, leave it alone for 2 hours, strain it out, put it in a different pot, and then like put in all your flavoring in there. And for broth of this quality, that isn't that much work at all. And it produced, and you saw how much it made. It made over 4 quarts of it. So I think this is great, and I would definitely recommend you try it.